Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hangout with Coach Kerry. Unfortunately, today we've had a few technical difficulties, so two of my other panelists are not able to be on today. But if you like this episode, please do give me some feedback in the comment section, and I will we'll do another one with some other topics today. So remember, you can check in with me at 9 a.m. Pacific. 9 a.m. Pacific at Hangout with Coach Kerry. You can also watch them at hangoutwithcoachkerry.com. You can see below, Kerry spelled Kerry, and by doing that, you get an opportunity to be able to give me your feedback. I can give you some response back, so you can get some free coaching from me. So why wouldn't you want to do that? So I suspect today you're on this episode or watching it because you are in the direct sales network marketing industry. Or maybe you're even looking at it as a possible career for you. Well, the reason I wanted to do this particular episode is I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I've been a business coach now for 18 years, but prior to that, actually, I had a very successful career in the direct sales network marketing industry. In fact, I was international sales trainer for a couple of companies. I built teams that are in the thousands. I did extremely well in the industry, and I know a lot about what it takes to be successful in this business. And I'm sure you're on this call today because you'd like to find out what it takes to maybe take your business to the next level, and you've got maybe some burning questions for me, and hopefully we'll get them answered today. I'm honored today to have a panelist on with me. Her name is Linda Ferguson, and I'm going to have Linda introduce herself to you. And so, Linda, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are and how they can find out more about you.
Good morning, Kerry, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to approach your listeners and make them aware that network marketing is a great way to earn residual income. It allows you to still work another job while still creating residual income and servicing your customers at the same time. I have a full-time job, but I also have another business, which is my skincare business, and that is Rodan & Fields. And that provides me to help and support other women and men have residual income. And when we empower women and men with a part-time job and they earn money, their lives change. And that is how I got into network marketing.
Great. And of course, there are people also who are in industries we call direct sales, where they might be more of a consumer-based product. And really today, this topic is for any of you, whatever you might call your industry, whether you call it direct sales, direct marketing, multi-level marketing, network marketing, either of those. What we're talking about is when you actually build a team who reach out to the consumer with a product or a service. So Correct. Thanks, Linda. Yeah, so thanks, Linda, for that introduction. And so today, I just want to, again, reach out to all of you who are watching this to, sit back and listen to our conversation and see where it might fit for you, where you happen to be in your industry. One of the things that I'm really clear on, and I made a few notes just because I wanted to make a few points today before Linda has a couple of questions for me, and then we'll take it from there. One of the things I wanted to mention is that, unlike a business that maybe, or a career that you might be on, you are in, is that you're an employee. And you have a boss who tells you that these are the certain pieces of your job description, that these are certain things that you need to do. And because you want to keep your job, because you have job security, you will do those things. But because you're an employee, you will do them because that's part and parcel of having your job. But when you are in the direct sales network marketing industry, you now are in business for yourself. Now, yes, you're not by yourself because you have a team around you. But one of the things when you're building a team yourself, you have to understand that each and every one of those individuals are really a volunteer army. Is that they're not there, they're not going to do what anyone tells them to do. Their own fears, their own phobias, their own challenges come up and really hit them sometimes square in the head. They've maybe never even experienced them before. Because a lot of people who join the industry or just elect to do something on the side to make some additional income, they do it and they don't have any experience being in business for themselves. they've never actually often had to sell anything. They've never had to empower anyone. They've never had to deal with, really all of the components of, and all the pieces of being successful in a business. So I think from a person who's got team members, one of the key pieces is to know that it is a volunteer army, and that volunteer army is one that really is going to require some different skills and ability to be able to lead them. And I like to say there's a gap that people live in, and then that sort of big valley that's there. The gap of being employed to the gap of moving into being self-employed. And the sponsor or the person who's on their team, their job is to really help them bridge that gap. Walk them through that place where they have a mindset change, where they really understand that their success in their business, yes, it has to do with the company, and yes, it has to do with the products, that they have to be, good quality products and all of that. And so let's assume all of that's in place for each and every one of you listeners today. But the piece that's going to determine your success is what goes on between your ears. And I think, Linda, you would absolutely agree with me on that. It's that personal mindset. It's that piece that you have to be able to get away from your fears. And one of the pieces is to identify what your fears are and really hit them square on. As a coach, I've coached dozens and dozens and dozens of people in the direct sales industry. And one of the pieces that I continually work on them with is understanding what their fears are. In fact, I do that with anyone who's in any business, because our fears are what hold us back. But especially in the industry, when you're moving from something that's so unknown to something something that's known to something that's so unknown, our fears have a huge opportunity to grow and mushroom. So the job of someone who brings someone into the business is you're going to have to be at a place where you're going to have to help those people understand their fears and what it is that's holding them back. So anyway, so Linda, let's move on, and I'm just going to unmute you here. And so to ask me your first question for me today, my dear.
Well, you're a coach. So right now I have a number of consultants that I am coaching, and it's really teaching them how to grow their team. So I'm sort of right now trying to figure out some strategies in order to get them on that road to success for their team.
That's a great question, and I think every single person, that's a question that comes to mind for them, because in order to build business and not just be a consumer product business, is you want to have team members, and as you said, empower them to create some income. So Linda, one of the very, very first things I do with any coaching client, whether they're in the direct sales network marketing business or in any business, is I want to really get to know what's important to them. Because what I learned long ago is my reasons for doing whatever I do are different than anybody else's. So one of the key things coaching your team members is to really figure out and help them uncover what's important to them. Because what's important to them will motivate them. Not what's important to anybody else, not what a trainer who comes in from out of town, not what other, motivational speakers. It's what's important to them. And what will hold them back is that fear is in greater proportion to what's important to them. So what you want to do is make sure that you're continually reminding them of what's important to them, because they're going to have to go through a steep learning curve to learn a new way of operating. Remember, they've been told what to do by a job because they want to keep their job, but now this is volunteer, this is optional. And what happens is that internal critic that we call in the coaching industry, their gremlin, shows up big and loud and holds them back. So you might say to them, this week, okay, how many phone calls are you going to make? I'm going to make 5 phone calls. Okay, great. So you follow up with them next week. How many phone calls you make? Well, and you're going to get a whole lot of excuses. Linda, does that sound familiar?
All the time. All the time. Yeah.
So what that's really about is that there is some fear holding them back. Now, fear can also look like procrastination. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is really dig down what it is. Now, they might not be clear on what the next steps are. And for some people, because there are 4 main behavioral styles, and two of those behavioral styles are not ones that are outgoing and gregarious and influencer styles. So it's really important that you lay out really clearly for them their next steps in a language that resonates with them. Because there have been a number of studies about the word sales. And what's interesting about it is, for a number of people, when that word sales, or they think about sales, happens right at the very front of their brain, which is where fear is, immediately gets activated. So there's something that word sales, and whether that's selling a person on the business or whether it's selling them a product, it catches in their throat because this fear is stimulated in the front of their brain. So you want to unpack that for them. And it's going to take time because it's going to be different for every person. And I deal with this exactly the same with people who are in their own small businesses, because every single day, in order for them to move their business forward, they're going to have to sell something, either themselves or their product or their service or their employees. And so you want to unpack for them, what's that fear about? They may have a notion of what a salesperson is, and you're going to have to come to a place where they actually now have made a shift in their perspective in that. So back to, how do you motivate them? Well, really what it's about is that there's a difference between inspiration, which somebody can inspire someone, and then at that particular point in time that, that'll fade, right? They can be motivated or inspired in that particular moment, but what we're looking for is something that's going to be long lasting, something that's really key to them. So I recommend for the new people and teaching your people is how to actually take people through that process of really uncovering for them what's meaningful for them. And then determining what is it that's actually holding them back. So is it, because procrastination comes with, they don't know what the next first steps are. They actually don't know what to say, so they're uncomfortable. So that's where often helping them, going 2 by 2, helping them do those kinds of calls with them or meeting with people, will help them break through that fear that they have, because the majority of people don't naturally have that ability to be able to move forward. And then in terms of how do you train them? Well, you're going to do some one-on-one work, and you're going to do that for anyone, of course, that you personally bring into the business, and then those people that you've identified who actually have a really strong motivation. And I'm going to draw a distinction here between a motivation and a need, because we all know people that need a business. We all know people who need extra money, but are they willing to do what it takes? No, they're not. So really what you're looking for is those people actually who are clear on that internal motivation themselves, and who are willing to work through whatever it is, that fear, that procrastination that's stopping them from taking that action forward. So you're going to do some one-on-one coaching, you're going to do some group coaching, you're going to do some group training. And today there are so many more tools available than were available when I was in the business. You have the ability to we'll be on Google Hangouts and record them. Set them up as a private group, for your team. Have private Facebook pages where you can work with certain team members and certain people at certain levels. So there's so many more opportunities for you, Linda, today than there were when I was in the industry to be able to motivate people who are on my team. Mm-hmm. So did that raise any other questions for you? Because often, when a question's asked, it raises other ones that come up.
Well, the motivation is key, because what my team will tell me is they know what they need to do, but it's to do it. And so it's implementing a system where people are disciplined with time. So if they have another job, then the question is, I want to do this. However, how do I block off time to commit to my network marketing business? And this is a challenge for everyone, because everyone has a different lifestyle, different obligations, So can you recommend a system where they block off time to work on that?
Yeah. In fact, it was interesting. One of the little cards that I got ready for today was this one called time management. Because what we were really talking about was, their motivation, which was their vision. So we talked about that first. That's one key piece in it. And then, of course, if you've actually helped them identify what it is that's important to them, you have to help them with their time management.
Right.
So in any industry, and I deal with this with all of my clients, whether they have a business that has 50 employees or whether they're self-employed, a solo entrepreneur, is time management is an absolutely critical piece to that. And it comes with this notion that time management is about getting the important things done, not everything done.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is that, your team members will have a huge list. Probably their lives are already really full already with what they have with family and job and social commitments and, sports or, whatever other things they're doing. And now what they're going to do is they're going to add another piece onto that without really stopping and realizing something has to go.
Correct.
No way that everything will actually fit into the jar. So you may have seen this analogy, but I'm going to share this with the audience today because there's listeners, it's really good, is that if you had a big jar and you filled it with water, which are all what I'm going to call just the easy kind of to do things, and you put in a big rock, which is an important thing, what's going to happen? Well, the water is going to overflow, right?
Correct.
So you want to do it the other way around. You want to identify, first of all, what are those important things? And in order for things to change in our lives, we have to change some of our patterns. So that one of the first things I say to people in time management is that if you're adding this extra piece onto it, you have to be aware of what you're saying no to something else. So every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else.
Sure.
Key piece. So it's not about trying to get everything done, because again, it's about getting the important things done.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the important pieces? Identify what those are. And I believe that a person who can really adequately manage their time and be productive can have no more than 5 big rocks. No more than 5. So that can be family. It can be personal, which would be their health. It can be their job, which we're talking in your industry, their job, and then maybe their network marketing business. So maybe that's just 4. And then they may have another volunteer organization.
Sure.
But they start adding any more of that in it, and it becomes absolutely impossible to do it all. So the first thing is that they have to stop and say, okay, what am I going to be saying no to if I'm saying yes to something else?
Yes.
So that's number 1. And then identify what those pieces are. And then I recommend what they do is they actually put a time allotment to each one of those big rocks per week. So if they're working a 40-hour week, then that's 40 hours, but then they have commuting as well on top of that. So how many hours? So maybe it's 50 hours a week they already have dedicated to their own business. Okay, so write 50 beside that rock. I'm sorry, not their own business, but their career or their job. Then how many hours for personal? So put a number beside that. How many hours for family? And that's also, making dinners, that's all of the shopping, that's all of that stuff. Put them numbers behind them, beside that. Then if they volunteer for something, how many hours is that going to be? Then their network marketing direct sales business, how many hours are they going to put into that? So you've added all of those up, and that gives you an idea of how many hours in a week you're going to be spending not sleeping. Then what I recommend you do is you have them create a grid, and it's easy to find a week at a glance calendar, and anywhere with 15-minute to 30-minute segments. So Monday to Sunday, 6:30 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, or whenever they go to bed, and we're going to create what I call a time budget. And this is one of my proprietary processes. I work with everybody, whether you're whatever, no matter what business you're in, everyone gets this coaching piece on the time budget. And what they're going to do is they're going to color code each one of those 4 or 5 big rocks, whatever they happen to be. And they're going to block actually off in what I'm going to call an ideal week. And what happens, one of 2 things. It starts a conversation around, are they a person who thinks about a scarcity of time? Or are they a person who thinks about an abundance of time? Because we don't all look at time the same way. I always use my parents as an example. My mother was a person, there was never going to be enough time. There was a scarcity of time for her. So she was always a bit stressed around it. She was very conscious about time and thinking there was never going to be enough time. My father, on the other hand, always thought there was going to be an abundance of time. So he never hustled, he never hurried with things. She was always frustrated, and he had lots of time. Now, they had 63 years of marriage, and they were happily married, so that they worked it out. But the bottom line is we each need to know our relationship with time. Like we need to know our relationship with money. We need to know our relationship with time, because that will be driving us in terms of how we approach time. So as a coach, Linda, I would recommend you, when you're coaching your team, is to actually work with them on this whole concept of what's their relationship with time, because then you'll uncover whether they in fact see an abundance or a scarcity. And that's important to know. So then what you're going to do is you're going to lay out all of this, all of the time during the week. And one or two things is going to happen. They're either going to go, wow, there actually is still more time there that isn't when I'm sleeping, or they might go, oh boy, okay, I can see why I'm overwhelmed. And that information is good because you can only change what you acknowledge. That's a basic coaching principle. You can only change what you acknowledge. So what you're looking to do is empower them to take a look at their time in a very different way, and then understand back to their vision. You know, what's that, my little card here again, you know, their vision, their motivation, what is it? Because if they have this time budget totally blocked out and they're saying, gee, I don't know where I'm going to have time to do this, then it's back to, well, how important is this for you? And go back to their motivation, because they're going to have to say no to something else if they're going to say yes to their business. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, very much so. And it is the challenge that many of them face. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all face it. You and I both face it. It's every single day deciding what we're going to spend our time on is really important. And so, you know, being able to discern, so that's the big picture. Then the smaller picture is, in that given moment, what's the most important thing to be working on? And I don't know about you, but I experienced a lot of people who were on my team is they would be busy learning or getting things organized and getting ready and getting ready and getting ready versus going out and being front and center and face to face with people.
Yes.
Because any business, whether you're in direct sales, network marketing, whether you're a coach, whether you're a graphic designer, whether you are a retail store, it's about relationship building. And so there has to be time where you're face to face with people, because people do business with people who they know, like, and trust. I call it the KLT factor. And so those people that they know, like, and trust, then they will consider doing business with them. So, you know, one of the questions, I know one of our panelists who was going to be on today and who wasn't able to because of technological reasons wanted to know how to find other team members. Well, the best way is go out and find your best customers.
Yes.
Because you can build relationship with them. And then you will more easily be able to understand their motivation. You'll understand what their vision is. You'll be able to, they'll be much more coachable because you have that trust factor that's in place with them.
Of course.
Does that make sense?
Of course. Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Great.
Definitely.
So Linda, we've got just a couple of minutes left. One more question for me today.
Well, that's interesting regarding team members, because we all know we have a great product, and it's just finding like-minded individuals and either, you know, for them to get it and then to grow their team. It's interesting because the business is one thing, but then if people have been employed by somebody else for decades, it's hard for them to change their mindset about the discipline.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's, you know, and then learning, because they're used to being told what to do in a certain time frame. Now they're in charge of that model, and that is a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, that definitely is a challenge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I would work with them on that time budget, because then you can create for them, you can co-create for them what would be their ideal week. You know, what are their best days to be able to be front and center and meeting other people? What are their best days to do some learning? What are their best days and time chunks? Because if they're used to being told, what you basically have to do is create a structure.
Yes.
And what I say to people is, we all perform better with structure.
Totally.
We all do. If not, time seems to stretch out in front of us like an open prairie, and the end of the week arrives and we didn't really accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. So getting them to embrace the concept that structure is actually their friend, that they will embrace it, that it will give them much more confidence that things will get done. Because part of what holds them back is that they actually don't believe that they're going to get the things done that they say they're going to do.
A good point.
So it's giving them the structure so they're much more confident that they're actually going to get things done. So, work with them on that whole piece about now, this is a new learning. And Linda, what I would honestly say is that I said this for years, is that the direct sales, network marketing, multi-level marketing industry is really a personal development program wrapped up in a business.
Yes.
And great products.
Yeah.
So focus on really helping them determine their motivation. Have them, for a lot of people, I've been involved in the personal development industries in the very, very early days when I saw Tony Robbins, I don't remember how many years ago now, I'll date myself if I do. But I became a student of the personal development industry, and I'm still surprised at how many people this has never come across their radar. And so I would spend a lot of time focusing on that, because the more they understand that they are in charge of their decisions, they're in charge of the choices that they make, they're in charge of the circumstances that they find themselves in, the more empowered they will be, and they will understand that if it is to be, it's up to me. And that phrase is really very true. But where that starts with, as I started this episode, which is, what's going on between their heads, it's really working on that for them. I'd also focus on the whole concept of law of attraction. There's been so much discussion of that in the industry today. A good friend of mine is Michael Lozier, who has a show actually called Hang Out with Michael on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. And I'm going to be on his episode this coming Friday. It's his 100th episode.
Good for him.
And there's a lot of great information there that actually is absolutely applicable to the direct sales and network marketing industry. Because if you don't think someone's going to buy your product, guess what? You're right.
They're not going to buy it. Yes.
They're not going to buy it.
That's right.
If you think you're going to do a lousy presentation to somebody about the business, guess what? You will.
Yes.
If you're, all of that, again, that's all the stuff that's going in here, because your thoughts create a vibration. So it's a positive or negative.
Sure.
So I'd start working on that kind of work with your team, because the team that really understands that they are in charge, so that it is up to them, they can make huge inroads in moving their business forward and getting the success that they want.
Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
My pleasure. So Linda, at the end of every episode, I always ask my panelists what's sort of the one thing that they're taking away from the episode today, and that helps cement the learning for the audience as well. So what are you taking away from today's episode?
Well, I like the idea about the time blocking and color coding. So even though I've had a conversation with my team regarding blocking out sets of time, I really think they have to have a visual map where they can see that. So they themselves can say, okay, that's where I have the time to work on my business.
Yeah,
I think that's a huge thing.
Good, they can put it in their in And the other thing, Linda, in any training, you always want to make sure that you're dealing with all four. This is an NLP piece, all four different styles. So you've got auditories, visuals, kinesthetics, and digitals. And today we don't have time to go into that, but I know for me, for an example, auditory is very low on my learning style. So if someone's telling me something, I'm never going to remember it. But I've learned that about myself, so then I know how to make sure my learning, I have to write things down, because I'm a visual kinesthetic. So for me, that's really important. So in terms of training, making sure you're dealing with all four different styles will be really key, so that the person who is an auditory will hear it, but the person who's a kinesthetic will feel it. The digital needs a laid out piece, and the visual, of course, needs to see it.
Yes, yes, excellent.
Anyway, my dear, thank you for being a panelist today. I really appreciate it. And again, everyone who's watching this episode today, if you're struggling with a bit of overwhelm and want to know how to accelerate your business, these tips will be good for you, regardless what industry you're in. So if you go to my website, hangoutwithcoachkerry.com, again, spelled Kerry, you can download my free book there, and you'll get notifications on upcoming episodes that may be of interest to you. So please go take that next step, and also watch all the other videos there as well. So Linda, thanks again for your time, and hopefully we'll be able to have all of you back on as a panel again, and have no technological challenges as well. So anyway, thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.